Okay, we're live. Welcome to the live stream of Cebas Visual Technology, and in this live stream I will talk about Thinking Particle Subscription Drop 6.10 and the new additions we did for this latest release of Thinking Particles. Especially I will talk in this video about our boundary that we have updated to use voxelization for boundary control. And I'll show you why this is important and why this is a huge improvement over the previous versions of Thinking Particles we have. As always, let me just give a little summary what's going on here. So I'm recording on one machine, doing the live recording, simulation, rendering, everything is on one and the same machine. And it's live, so this is uncut, there's no edit going on. So if I stumble a little bit explaining or if there's a hiccup, please excuse me right away. That's a live recording. And also this recording will be made available on our Vimeo tutorial channels. So now let's just jump right in and enjoy this video. Just go and switch the monitors, and here we go. Before we do something in here, let me just explain what we have here, what kind of scene. The scene is made out of very few objects. We have a dummy object here. I use this dummy object, let's just zoom in here. I use this dummy object and turn this dummy object into a particle. So I like to use object to particle, then I can just bring in any 3D Studio Max object. I'll turn this into a particle and I'll put it in the emitter particle group. Here's our emitter particle group. So that's all. I bring the dummy in and then I get one particle in this group here in the emitter. Then I'll grab the emitter and use the flow emitter operator, and I'll create another set of particles, and these particles go in the group oil. So all my particles land in the oil group. So that's actually it. And the flow emitter is good for fluids because it creates a constant flow. So whenever a particle left the emitter, another one is created. So we can easily create a constant flow of particles, which is important for fluid simulation. We're not going too deep into the how we set up the flow emitter, just so that you know how the scene works. Let me just zoom out. And then we have this bowl here, and the bowl has these little pedals in there fixed to the bowl itself. So we will fill the bowl with fluid and then spin the bowl. That's the important part. We are not spinning the pedals, we're spinning the whole bowl, and there's a reason to it. Then we have a force that we apply only to the oil. So the oil will have gravity, it will experience gravity. Right now it's minus 9.1, 9.81. And then we will have our simulation group where we just use the flow simulation, our 6.10 flow operator. SPH 6.10. That's the latest flow operator we have. And I know we have many options. With every release, nearly with every release, we enhance and fine-tune our fluid solver. And it has now really become really stable and splashy and all the things you want from a fluid solver. And it's a particle-based SPH solver, so it has its advantages as well. Then we have our new flow boundary and our flow solver. So now let me show you that on top of that, we are working with a very low subframe sampling. We are using half frame subframe sampling. And then let's have a look what we had before. I'm going to the ray intersect, and then we'll just play back the animation here we have. So with the ray intersect, everything is fine as long as our bowl is stationary and nothing happens. It's always problematic for any kind of physics or fluid simulation when you have a moving object acting against your particle cloud. And what you will see in a few seconds here is all the fluid is going through the bowl. So the faster the bowl spins, the more fluid we lose through the sides. And this is a common issue and a common problem. And it gets worse with higher speeds of particles, where you just shoot particles through objects. And this is a sampling issue. So if your wall is that thin and you shoot a particle, and in the next frame the particle is here, no collision has happened. If the particle in the next frame is here, it missed the wall and that's it. It's outside. So how can we solve that? And what's the easiest way to solve this kind of issues you have? And one issue that works much better with deforming and rotational forces is using the voxel system. So what we are doing is we are voxelizing all our rigid bodies or collision objects, and I can just show you when I go to inside and outside. Let me just refresh our simulation here. So right now I show both inside and outside. Let me just show the inside voxels. This is how we rasterize our mesh, our geometry. And each of these dots or points is the center of a voxel. And there we can do a distance field and measure if something has penetrated these voxels. So this is a very efficient and good method because it has a volume where we detect the collision. So we know in advance something is going on. However, you can also trick and overcome this issue. When you're too fast, there is no way you can catch it. If you overdo the speed, it's really tough. The only way possible then is increase the subframe sampling. So, but for now, let's have a look when we just turn to voxels. So I turn from ray intersect to voxels. So now let's have here our simulation. Let me just go down here, and we see no change at all when it's stationary. So the voxel works exactly the same. However, now watch what happens when we get the rotation. Now our system actually works as it should work. We are not losing any particles through the wall except where the holes are. So what we get here right now, and by the way, that's real-time simulation in 3D Studio Max and live recording of an HD video and sound recording and everything. So we're doing here the simulation, and you can see the voxel boundary collision helps us in containing the particles even when the object rotates really fast and objects are moving fast or particles are moving fast. But let me try one more thing. There's also another issue when we have ray intersect. As I mentioned, the ray intersect is pretty good when the objects are stationary. So as long as the bowl isn't moving, let me just play that back again. We can see the fluid is contained. There's no issue at all. It will come out the holes, everything you expect. So that's totally fine. Now let's see if something changes or happens when we use a higher gravity. Let me just increase the gravity to 50. So that's a factor of 5 of gravity. So I also want to increase now the decompression here to something like that, so that we keep our volume in the fluid. And that's all we want to have here changed. And now let's see how it behaves now. So once again, we are in the intersection. So we are doing tests with the geometry. So even with the higher gravity, we are not using any particles right now. So they are all nice and contained inside of our bowl. And then with higher gravity, our issue we had from before is still the same. The faster we go, the more we will see that our fluid goes through right through the walls. So we still have the same issue. We are increasing the gravity, intersect doesn't work. But I said, hey, let's do the voxel. So now let's see if voxel with a higher gravity gives us the same result as we had before, which was nice, contained, and everything was working really nice. So let's see if the voxel helps us still with higher gravity values. So keep in mind, now the pressure we create, the particles get more force, and together with the rotational effects, that might give us some trouble. But we can see it is even with extreme values, it's pretty stable and works very well. So our fluid is perfectly contained inside of our bowl. So we get this nice effect here right now. So that's actually what I wanted to show you about our new flow boundary and why you want to use voxels. And you might have seen we have the option using both intersect and voxel, and that's practically when you want to use that is when nothing else is working anymore. So if I, for example, would increase, let's go to 100, as I mentioned, you can overdo it easily and kill every simulation with these depending on the subframe samples. Keep in mind we have extreme subframe samples, and now you see it's leaking through. And let me just see, we have now the voxels. So now the voxels are failing us. So let's see here, and that's only because the particles are now so fast they go through the wall of our bowl. And now with the rotational force as well on top, we end up with really problematic simulation here. So what we could do here is let's try intersect, if that helps us. And intersect is surprisingly still containing all the fluid. So all the fluid we have here is still contained in the bowl because it is not moving or doing anything here. So that works. However, intersect fails with a rotational force, and that's the shortcoming here. So that's why we have both intersect and voxel. Now we are using both methods. We're using the intersect method and the voxel. So we're using the one that's good for rotation, and we're using the one that's good for stationary objects, or when they not move against the particle cloud. So now I've turned on both boundary methods, and we can see here what's happening. And with rotation, we can contain everything in here. So we lose the fluid only through the holes. This is what we want and what we expected. And that's a huge difference. So that is when you want to turn on and try intersect and voxel on top. And again, every one of these boundary options is adding a little bit of time, as you can see. But now we have still with half frame subsampling. You have to keep in mind, we are doing very coarse steps in our fluid simulation. We can contain these particles and have a really nice, great fluid simulation here. So that's about it in this short live stream. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you could learn about our new flow boundary. As I mentioned, just as a summary, we added the option voxel and intersect and voxel to our flow boundaries. And you can use that to get even better animations and simulations with flow and fluids. Thanks for watching, and check out our other videos as well. Thank you. Goodbye.